All right, let's get started. So, there's this thing called a BAM in Huntington. And before you start racking your brain about what BAM stands for, BAM doesn't stand for anything. You know those old Batman shows where it was like, BAM, kapow. That's what it stands for. If you guys could introduce yourself, actually, Kibi and Ian, I think we all know you already. Brianna, who are you and what brings you here today?
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Brianna. I'm the city planner for Huntington, and I have been in Huntington for about 6 years now, and I love it dearly. And in our work at the city, we're always trying to engage better with awesome people in the community and talk more about things that we want to see in different ways. So that's why I'm here today.
And we are here to discuss a really interesting kind of event called a BAM. I'm assuming that people here will have probably no knowledge of what a BAM is. Talk us through it from the beginning of the concept and what it is you're trying to do to sort of what it has become for the city of Huntington today.
Great, yeah. So we're going to start with just a very quick timeline of how we came to this idea. This is a quick summary of some of the events that we've held over the last couple years. The first one, though, was this event called the 1100 BAM, and that really started in May, leading up to May 2015. It was in the 1100 block of 4th Avenue in downtown Huntington, and it was actually designed as part of a public input session that we needed to have as part of a Huntington Police Department grant that we had received to study crime in the downtown. And so we were in this group, we were talking about crime and issues like you would in any planning grant, and we need to survey residents, we need to talk to business owners, we need to talk to all these people about like what their impression is of crime in the downtown. And we had also kind of been brainstorming in our office this concept of called a build a better block. And these are not ideas that we have completely invented ourselves. It's ideas we've stolen from the national scene. And so this build a better block model is basically what you may assume. You take over a block in your city that you think has potential, and you make it be what you want it to be for a weekend instead of waiting for the huge infrastructure and investment that may need to come in order to get it to there permanently. So we looked at this. This is the block. You can see a little bit about it, and the guys, please jump in anytime. This block has a lot of buildings that were still there and a lot of buildings that were torn down. There's a big vacant parking lot and a grassy lot. This is us cleaning, getting ready for it. And so what we basically did, and I think the guys were kind of talking about this earlier, is we planned a party around what this block could look like if it was built out with a park and a venue and other things going on and taking over vacant storefronts. And we had a lot of music that Ian brought in, and we walked people in these shirts that said Street Speaks. They walked around and they interviewed every single person who was at this festival about crime in downtown.
So I'm assuming that this wasn't something that, as cool as Mayor Williams is, right, and we all love Steve, I'm assuming that this wasn't a thing that the city said, oh yeah, we've got $100,000 sitting around, we can invest in this. How did you do it on not a lot of money, and what was the involvement? How necessary were people like Ian and the other community members in doing something like that?
Well, the grant had money in it for getting public engagement, so we used a little bit of funding from the grant actually to do the event, and then we had some sponsors, you would say, or partners with our group who were wanting to see this happen, and they kind of made it happen.
Right, and 1100 BAM was unique in that for the grant we had to compile data. So we needed surveys, we needed the public to come out and tell us what they thought.
In order to do the first BAM. This is before the first BAM.
Right, yeah, so leading up to the first BAM. So we needed to collect all this data and we needed to get the public's input, and we wanted to do it in a unique way, and we didn't want to just put something on Facebook that says fill out this survey. So, over a couple drinks, we decided to do a band. And then Bruce Decker was involved heavily in that conversation. And then it grew into this big block party. Mm-hmm. And I can't remember the number of response we had, but I mean, it was amazing. I mean, the whole community came out.
So was the BAM the result of the public feedback and that you had some people wanting a celebration, or the BAM was the feedback moment?
The BAM was the public input session. Yeah. So, and the police, as you can see here, were integral to this event because it was a grant for the Huntington Police Department. So they were our primary partner. So they were very much engaged in this as a concept and were a great partner to work with. Again, from the very beginning, we partnered, and I think we'll see that throughout. We hosted walks down to the event. We had a lot of music. There was different community organizations that worked in our department that came out. The Advocates Saving Adoptable Pets, this ASAP group that helps get pets out of the animal shelter.
Ian, as a citizen, but obviously someone who was involved as an arts organizer, what did that first BAM look like? Like, for people who won't have seen it, you show up, what is there? Like pop-ups, what are we looking at?
Yeah, I thought it was really great because one of the focuses was to take like a vacant storefronts, and these buildings were, not necessarily completely dilapidated or anything, but they weren't, they were kind of unsightly, we'll say. And this was on basically our main strip in Huntington. So these guys like went in there and got in and cleaned these storefronts like forever. I wasn't part of that. And then you kind of show the potential of what it could be. Okay, this is a vacant storefront one day, but then when we were walking by, they had incorporated, it could just be like little art vendors or whatever, but they made it look like a store, and once people visualize that, you're like, oh, okay, well that building is great. That is a really nice space. There could be something there. And yeah, just crazy.
Ebe, you were telling me before that you were kind of not sure how the building owners would respond, right? Like, you're basically saying, hey, give us the keys to your building. We want to use it for this thing that we can't really describe. What was their response?
It was amazing. I mean, and it has been for each band we've done. Basically, anything we ask for, they're just giving to us. I mean, it's a give-take. They want to promote their space, too. They want somebody in there. And so you pitch them as this idea, well, let's put someone in there temporarily and show the public what it could be. And they're all for it. And that's what I would say if someone is interested in doing a similar event, just make the call. Find the building and make the call. I mean, the worst they can say is no.
The worst they can say is no. My mum used to say that. It's such a good piece of advice. It's kind of the news story motto. The worst they can say is no. Brianna, now, these are obviously fun. I've been to a BAM, and I had a blast. But there's obviously a point to it from the city's perspective. What have you seen from the first BAM and the second BAM? What did you see happen? Like, was it actually a beneficial impact? Did you hear from developers? What was the feedback?
Yeah, I think we've had a lot of success, like they were saying, showcasing what buildings can be. For instance, in the 1100 block, there was a building that had been vacant for several years, completely derelict, vacant space, and was bought by somebody the next month, in the next couple of months, and is now under renovation. Now, we're not saying that was because of us, but we are saying that it was because of us. So I think, again, just drawing attention to these spaces, and again, that's a national practice with these kind of events that we've seen across the nation from other communities, that bringing attention to these spaces can be the impetus for getting them to be permanent kind of structures in the community.
Cool. I think the best way to describe what the BAM is to maybe show do you want to show the video?
Yeah.
Do you want to do that now? There was a BAM, here we go. I've been to Huntington twice, and I'm like, we did this. So there was a BAM in Huntington.
You're a wee, Jake, we'll take it.
Man, I'm so into it, it's amazing. So there was a BAM in Huntington last weekend, and we had a local filmmaker called Josh McComas, shot a film of all the activity, just because we knew that to show people what it would look like and to promote the city, we wanted a great piece of visual. Before we roll it, is there anyone else out there, not from the city of Huntington, whose municipality or neighborhood is doing something creative to make a good use of its abandoned buildings? Any other efforts that you all have heard of that might illuminate this conversation?
My name is Adam, I'm from Whitesville, and through Turn This Town Around with the Hub, what we did is we actually just staged the storefronts to their iconic past. So we had an old store on the corner of one of our blocks in Whitesville, and we staged it to the Hatta department store, and we ended up with enough donations from people that had saved, like, even shopping bags. So we staged it just like the Hatta's department store. from 30 years ago, and in another month, actually the next month, the building was sold to someone who put a new business in. We did that a couple of times, and we actually saw the redevelopment of those properties. So it doesn't take an event; it just kind of takes the staging.
Right. That's great. Yeah.
Thanks, Adam. Whitesville, another place where I'm claiming to be from. Boone County represent. And I don't think there's anyone from Princeton here, but Princeton, I think, is another great example of a city that saw blank walls as being a canvas. Right? It's just like an excuse to throw some color on it. So I think the challenge is out there for all of you to, ask forgiveness rather than permission and try and do something with these abandoned spaces that you have. Let's check this out. What do you think?
The Appalachian culture, everyone wants to chip in. We all want to see great things.
That's how things get started. Somebody saw somebody do something.
I actually pray for stuff like this to happen. Failing a little bit's better than doing nothing. And so doing nothing is not an option in West Virginia. The cavalry is not coming to save us. Like, we really need to help save ourselves.
It's the field of dreams, baby. If you build it, they will come kind of thing. We want to create change in Huntington, especially, West Virginia in general.
If it can happen in Huntington, it can happen anywhere. Create Huntington stirred something up in town, and we're building upon that. It wasn't a city government initiative, it was grassroots.
Create Huntington has been around since like 2008. Its mission from the beginning has just been to kind of empower people to go and do things and make the city better.
We have been trying to promote some tactics that we've seen in other places that have worked to help revitalize. And Create Huntington's been a great partner in that because they are the group that's like catalytic.
Everything that Huntington is doing, where we're setting a stage for other people across the country, started as a result of Create Huntington. We're standing on their shoulders.
So WeBAM is the third sort of pop-up block party that Create Huntington has organized.
It all started because the city had hired a guy named Bruce Decker, and he owns Collective Impact, and he's a guy that loves Huntington, and he had moved to Pittsburgh and couldn't wait to get back. So he came back, and he met the city planner, Brianna Shell, which is a progressive, the best city planner in the state. And so we just started talking, and he said he had a dream about Huntington, that he wanted to start making Huntington a better place to be. So we all came together and we did our first BAM.
The first was 1100 BAM, and then it was 801 BAM, and this is the WeBAM.
The idea was to take spaces that are not used in the community that you wouldn't think would be desirable, such as this alleyway, and turn it into a place that involves art and different ideas and inspiration.
So then people can reimagine that site, and they can also, it spreads. So people can not only reimagine that building and what it could be, but then they start walking around town with a new set of eyes. And they're like, well, what could that abandoned building do or be?
What we try to do is go there and transform them a little bit, shine them up, and show the potential that they could have.
Our downtown was thriving at the time, but it was missing that connection to Marshall. So, and that block was the connection. So we took over all the vacant buildings, and it was 1100 BAM, and then there was a great turnout. Now all those buildings are full.
Those buildings got bought, and they're becoming new businesses as we speak.
One repainted shop on the main street, or like a bunch of flowers somewhere, or a party, right, has a transformative effect on the way a community feels about itself, and the way a community interacts with itself, and the way how optimistic it feels about itself.
The more people come together like this, the more we realize the potential that we have as now America's greatest community.
Right here, this whole area is transformed. Look at all the people. This is no accident. What they have done year in and year out, they stir things up.
We want to change the city. Huntington's not going to change itself, so we have to take initiative and do things. I love this city. There's so much bad press about it. We want to counteract that with the good stuff. And we have plenty of good stuff to offer, too. So we'll just keep hitting them hard.
The communities that we see that are really getting ahead, the common thread with all of those is they're doing it themselves.
Just showing what could happen actually opens people's eyes.
The importance of these events and just bringing awareness to the community and just building a sense of community in a place that, when I first came here probably 20 years ago, didn't have a huge sense of community.
With events like this, it allows people who are searching for stuff like this, people who never knew anything about this, for everybody to come out. It inspires you and encourages you to seek and look into stuff that you're unfamiliar with.
I feel obligated to come to them in a good way. They're setting a great example of how to live in this community. I want to follow that example.
There's nobody doing it here, so just to take the initiative and meet the right people that want to come out and promote themselves and do the right things, and I feel like is a huge boost for anything going on around here.
We're better together. That's what I always say about West Virginia. We don't have much money, but we're like a big crazy quilt of people. And so we're always better together when we're all stitched together and doing stuff in unity.
It's a Friday night. It's a beautiful sunny day in Huntington. There are people out on the sidewalk. There are people in here. There's music. That's the kind of thing that makes people in Huntington, business owners in Huntington, say, oh, this is a thing. This is a place. There's activity here. These people are customers. There's foot traffic.
And that's what WeBAM does, is it stirs it up. And then once the dust settles, then you say, holy smoke, things are going on. All the community leaders who I talk to anymore, they'll say, well, really small towns, well, I'm not so sure that we have the resources. And so you have resources that you haven't even imagined.
There's nothing happening here tonight that Huntington can only do and other communities can't do.
You have the potential to do it on your own. You really do.
Everyone I call is willing to pitch in. You can look at a vacant building and say, I could never get in there. Whoever's selling that would never let me in there. I've never had that. Every person I've ever called in a vacant building gave me their key and said, do what you do.
That's how things get started. Somebody saw somebody do something.
I saw a print of a cowboy roundup, and at the caption of it said, you either make dust or you eat dust. And we're making dust.
The idea of these block parties is really a great one. It really, like I said, it really makes you walk through your town with a fresh set of eyes.
All cities around the state should learn from that and feel like they can replicate what's happening in Huntington.
Because once you see this kind of cornucopia of awesome things happening at a space that you've walked by 1,000 times, you're going to look at other abandoned buildings and other underutilized portions of your town, whether it's a park or whatever, that you're gonna look at it and be like, what can I do there?
It's the broken window theory in reverse. If you don't think that it's happening, then go somewhere in downtown Huntington. It's happening everywhere.
I couldn't be more ecstatic about it. I mean, I'm just filled with hope and joy all the time.
Every community can create their own excitement.
Where before I felt like we were treading water, now I'm like, we're on the high dive. We're gonna do the triple backspring corkscrew into the pool and not spill our drink. I mean, it's really exciting.
There's probably no city anywhere that you can't be able to do this.
Success draws success. This is a wonderful thing, not just for Huntington, it's for West Virginia and all of Appalachia, is that we don't have to run second fiddle to anybody. We have the spirit and we have the energy to do anything that we can set our mind to.
Yeah, I haven't seen it yet.
We actually got that film delivered this morning at 6 at Sheets. Yeah, he finished it last night at 4:30.
Yeah. And I obviously haven't changed my clothes for a weekend. They want exactly the same. Who's got a favorite outfit? So I want to make sure we leave enough time for questions and thoughts from people. Obviously, you are all dealing with your own different municipalities, and you have some questions. But I guess from Brianna's perspective, being someone in the city machine that can give approvals and can plan things, what would be your advice for a citizen from another municipality who wants to do something like this? What can they do to approach their city to make things like this happen? What are the good strategies to build a good partnership and make things like this happen?
Yeah, I think what we try to do when people come to us is always talk about what opportunities exist while trying to balance, of course, the role that we do play, which is safety and community and making sure that everything that's being done can be done in a way that protects the people who are involved. So I always recommend, like, if you're going to somebody, it's not so much like what can you do for me. It's like, here's what I want to do and how can you help me is always a great way to partner with your city. And I think we are always looking for people who are coming to us and saying, we want to help you and we want to be a partner. So just as you all know, the city is not going to come in and save you. No one's coming to save anyone. We're all in this together. So I think that's an important approach when you work with the municipality, is that they're not an adversary. They're not. Sometimes it may take some learning about how these different tactics work and how can we do it, which we're still, like, right now we're thinking about a way to set up actual system so that way we can permit these in a way that, you know, anybody walking in the door can kind of package these pop-up events, which have happened again in other municipalities. So it's not out of common to see those things start to happen after you do it a few times.
Anyone who's maybe trying to work with their city or the municipality that has a good relationship or a bad relationship, any sort of insights for anyone out there who's maybe trying to do this and hitting some hurdles? No. Is anyone particularly inspired by this and is going to go and do this next week? I know I am. Yeah, up the back. Dan.
I understand how this can work in larger cities, but a lot of us are in smaller towns. And the issues are slightly different, though I can see that what happens a lot in smaller towns is the economic base erodes. The strong hands buy up the property, such as churches and banks, and they like to tear things down and create parking lots. And a lot of the small towns have to fight to maintain their personality or their core. But in small towns, you have the advantage if you can get a corner on something. A couple buildings can turn the tide in how things are perceived. And I'm from West Union, and we haven't had the whole downtown torn down, but there's a strip developing parallel, and so the usual traditional business traffic is moving to the strip. But I worked with people 20 years ago to establish the first rail trail, which goes through West Union in West Virginia. So that's a potential to create an alternative business flow to the downtown. But if you don't have some sort of business flow, no one's going to maintain the buildings or rent them, and they eventually get torn down. So I think it's a time-sensitive struggle in a lot of these communities. But I would like to hear more about how smaller towns are dealing with these sorts of issues too.
Yeah, well, and I jump in, of course, guys, but I think the beauty of this is it really hasn't been super high resource. Like, we've had no budget for any of these events, and so it's been through partnering, or we're not charging people anything to, like, come. It's really just drawing attention and finding a willing partner, of course, with the vacant property that you are able to work with the owner on. But I think it's the way to get people to drive to the downtown. We have the same problem in Huntington, competing development in other areas of the city compared to the downtown core. So it's a way to help preserve, I think, to call attention to it.
Dan, was there another question? Oh, down here. That's an amazing hat, too. This is good. Yeah, you know how to make a splash, man. I like it a lot. Yeah. I feel really underprepared now.
Yeah, most of the towns around me have a Chamber of Commerce or something called Main Street, whatever the name of the town is. I'm sure that there's something similar in Huntington. Have they been helpful or a hindrance to this project?
Huntington used to have a Main Street program, but we don't right now. We're looking at starting up another Main Street program. We do have a very active chamber and other various downtown development groups. I would say that they haven't been a hindrance by any means, and I think they could be a more active partner in the future. Again, because we've had these events very tailored to a specific goal, whether it be part of this public input session or a presentation that we're trying to host or unveiling of the Create Huntington strategic plan. I think we haven't necessarily, worked against them, or we probably could engage them a little bit more.
Yeah, definitely in the future, it's somewhere that we can reach out to for sure.
Mm-hmm. But a Main Street program would be an awesome partner to work with if you have one in your community, because they're doing very similar things, I would think.
Any other questions? Thoughts? Oh, cool.
Hi, I just had a question because you said that you got grant money to do the first one. Did you wait for a period of time to be able to tell the other businesses, oh, these buildings sold once we did this? Like, as you've done more of these, does it make more people want to be involved? Because you didn't know if it would work the first time to have any sort of impact?
Yeah, I would say the BAM in general has almost taken a life of its own. I mean, we'll be out and about and people come out, when's the next BAM, or where's it at, or what's the topic, or, what's going on. So I would say that the feedback's definitely been great, and the public has really ran with it. And so with each one, we're getting new partners. And like I said, with WeBAM, there were, around 15 organizations had reached out and just wanted to partner. And that's how you keep your budget low, is partnerships through that. Like we did a fashion show last week at the WeBAM in the alley, and I think everything was donated. I mean, you donated the art. I mean, the wood for the chalkboard was donated. All the clothes were donated by local Goodwills. And so I think they had something like 50 outfits or something that was all donated by Goodwill. So, I mean, you definitely have to reach out to these organizations, and it'll keep your budget low, and public will be in it.
I think we haven't, just to follow up real quick on that, is that we haven't done as much of a good job kind of following up afterwards. That hasn't really been part of our practice. I think we're trying to figure out how we're going to evolve as we move forward. And yeah, we've only done these in relationship with other projects. We're not doing them on their own. So like for the first one, that was a grant that we had already that we just used some of that money to host the first one. So something we could look for in the future is actually like seeking out money to put these events on. Yeah.
How long did it take you to plan, and how did you get people to show up? Like, how did you advertise?
How long did it take us to plan the first one?
Probably, I mean, it's kind of like what we were talking about earlier. You have to put the date out there at some point, because then you get serious as far as like getting to the point where you're ready. So I would say probably, I mean, we may go like 3 to 6 months out, but like the last 3 months is really when we're really working a lot more on it. And getting people out there. Amazingly enough, these guys have really great networks in the world already, so we're using existing networks a lot of the time, social media.
And the Herald Dispatch has been amazing. Yeah. Dave Lavender, so I mean, they're constantly running stories, look out for this, and the great things going on. Mm-hmm. And I would say setting events on Facebook is an amazing resource, because if you get people to sign up to that, or even if they put they're interested, every time you change anything on that event, it notifies them. So you're getting constant shares and constant feedback from the public.
Yeah, starting with a core of people involved, the way the algorithms and things like that seem to work. If you can, get everybody prepared and do things strategically right out of the gate, and then you start getting it shared, then you'll start getting those, it'll be receptive, and more people will start seeing it. And then, with this, like the WeBAM, it was great because we got these big banners, which were also donated. We took over the storefront. They had WeBAM up top and the big posters. And people just kept walking back and looking at it, because they usually look in this building, it's just this blank space. And we got all these banners and art everywhere. And what the hell is going on here? Yeah. And so then, we're engaging in that way. So making a spectacle is a pretty good way to do it. That's the way with the first BAM. There was pop-ups all around here. There was a pop-up park for children, and always get animals.
You should always have animals.
Always have animals there. For one, they deserve a good home. And for two, who doesn't like a good puppy,
Yeah, and of course we use also Jimbo's beautiful artwork to do a lot of our advertising, and he's just such an amazing networker himself, and these posters really sell themselves, I think.
Yeah.
Using the art component for sure.
Mm-hmm. Seems like find the Jimbo in your community.
Yeah, find it. Yeah, good luck. Yeah. He's ours, don't take him.
But there's got to be one. I know there's one, like artist or printmaker or something in each town. The takeaway for me, I don't know about you all, but the takeaway for me about Huntington is like the importance of bravery, right? Just like, well, whatever, let's give it a shot. You know, people aren't going to be laughing at us in the street. Let's give it a go. If it doesn't work, there's no more or no less people than were walking down this street anyway. And so I think that's why Huntington deserves to be really applauded by this effort. We're going to share the video on the Hub's Facebook page and through the news story feed over the next couple of days. Please take it and use it and share it as an example of not just to feel great about Huntington and West Virginia, but to inspire people in your community to want to tackle similar things and you know, do similar efforts. What's next for the BAMs? Do we know?
Great,
Just got out of one.
It's a week, Jim.
we have been talking about this, and I think it's an important point too to mention is just like, what is this thing and how is it going to evolve? But I think we've really found that it's really capturing a couple different concepts. It's either a place or a venue that we want to see better utilized. It's either a concept like the vegetarianism and veganism not really being represented as a food option in Huntington, or it's trying to take something that's kind of boring and making it a little bit more fun, like getting public input from people. So I think we're always trying to evolve around, like, you know, what else could we do, like, that we don't have here that we want to see.
Kibi, can you tell people about the do-gooders? So the fashion parade that you saw, which was, by the way, incredible, like a fashion parade in an alley with like green synthetic cars, amazing. Who are the do-gooders and what is this?
Right. So for WeBand, we wanted to rope in everyone in Huntington that was doing great things. And so a guy named Anthony Hancock, he started the Do-Gooders in Huntington, and their mission is just to do great things. I mean, literally, he said if there's a snowstorm, they get their shovels out and they shovel snow. But he's really passionate about fashion. And so I had stumbled upon him on the internet and saw that he did a fashion show partnered with Goodwill where all the clothes were donated. And then in return, they make outfits for homeless people that are, you know, trying to interview and things like that. And so all the proceeds from their fashion shows, they give back to the city mission. I think they built Easter baskets for the kids that were in the city mission with their first one. And all the money from the WeBand was donated back to the city mission.
Awesome. Okay, so if you have follow-up questions, if you want to learn more about these guys, follow up with Brianna and Kibi and Ian. Pick their brains, learn from what they did. Thank you, guys. We're going to be back here in a minute. So this is like creative placemaking in a really cool guerrilla way. In 5 or 10 minutes, we're going to come back here to see kind of what that looks like on the other end. We're going to hear from the people in Pittsburgh, some of the people behind the most creative and successful placemaking initiatives in Pittsburgh. We're going to hear from them about how they do it and why they do it, and again, steal some great ideas from them. So come back here in a minute. Thanks, guys.
Thank you.
Awesome.
It's a field of dreams, baby.